Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ask Jeffrey Live. We are actually coming to you live today from Wimberley, Texas. Shout out to Munger and Campbell. They allowed us to meet in their offices, and they're going to be joining us live as well. So they may have actual questions right here. They're sitting around the table around me. So we have been actually having a very active week. We met last night with the West Austin Democrats. Yesterday, during the day, we were in Bryan, Texas. And then the night before, we met with the Stonewall Austin Democrats. So it's been rather busy for us. This evening, I do want to let y'all know about this evening. We will be at the Grand Social Club and Billiard Room. It's on Airport. Is it Airport Road or Airport Street? Boulevard. Neither one. All righty. They're on Airport Boulevard in Austin. We will be there from 6 until 9. It's a happy hour that we're holding, and we are very excited about it because I can't wait to enjoy a beer with everyone who attends. So make sure if you're able to make it out tonight from 6 to 9, at the Grand Social Club and Billiards Room on Airport Boulevard. So, a couple of notes of interest. I need to make sure that all of you understand that you need to register to vote. You must be registered to vote by February 5th in order to vote in the March 6th primary. If you go to our website, you can actually see when we will be having voter registration parties. And that's Aaron that just walked by. Just so y'all know, he's our policy director. He's with us today. So everyone say hello to Aaron. Now then, we as well, I wanted to let everyone know that this Sunday at 2 o'clock, we have a special edition of Ask Jeffrey Live where we will just be discussing education and our education policy. So we are very excited about that. And so tune in on Sunday at 2 o'clock from 2 to 3. If you're in Dallas, we'll be doing it from Dallas from our campaign headquarters, which is 6510 Abrams Road, Suite 100. If you would like to come and see it live with us, that would be great. We will be serving actually pizza afterwards. So if you don't want to come to hear me speak, at least come for the pizza. All righty, let's get to the questions. That's why all of y'all are here. So hello, everyone. Have a seat. Have a seat. Again, for those of you who are just tuning in, we actually have a live audience with us today. They're sitting around us. So hello, welcome. So one of the questions that I wanted to follow up that came up previously, Mary had commented that she owned her own condo. She's on a fixed income. Many of the owners in the complex are the same way. The HOA fees were being raised each year to the point of no longer being able to afford to live in her home. Is there a legal way to help the elderly or disabled with this? Unfortunately, with the Texas HOA laws that are currently in place, we are not able to limit the amount assessed to residents. There is a cap on how much an HOA can raise dues each year, and payment options must always be offered to individuals who are being assessed by HOAs. So there are some things. What I will do is when I take over as governor, we will actually look into how we can strengthen our HOA laws. We need to allow each HOA to be independent, but at the same time, we don't need them to end up pricing people out of their homes. So Mary, I do thank you for asking that to us. Let's see. Barry had asked, do you have a plan that will assist the elderly and disabled with property tax? I think, let's see. Barry, do you have a plan that will assist the elderly and disabled with property tax? There are some laws already in place which cap property tax once you do retire or you reach the retirement age. I also know there are some laws on the books as far as the disabled. What we are needing to look at, though, is it caps it, but it caps it way too high for those who are disabled and elderly. And we need to look at a system where we can actually lower property taxes, because property taxes are going up higher than the actual cost of living increases someone might receive through Social Security. So I believe we need to tie those together. So if there is an increase or there isn't an increase, then the property tax would actually follow suit rather than property taxes being raised exponentially more than what someone on Social Security or SSI might be receiving. So Barry, thank you for that. And that is something that would be on my agenda. And that's Lewis behind me. I'll say hello, Lewis. Lewis is our field director. Let's see. Shelley had also asked a question. I think one of the most important issues facing our state is establishing a state health program for Texas Care, which is available to everyone based on income, or the funding of hospitals and public clinics. How do you plan to deal with the healthcare crisis? We've discussed healthcare, I believe, just about on every episode we've ever had. And I do believe that all citizens have a right to accessible and affordable health care. I'm not sure the federal government's going to get there, straight anytime soon. So knowing that, then Texas needs to come up with its own plan. As everyone is well aware, healthcare is not an easy fix. One thing we do need to do, first of all, is if it's still available once I take office in 2019, we need to call for the Medicare expansion money and tell them that our state and our individuals actually pay that money. We want our money back. By not accepting that money, Rick Perry and Greg Abbott actually declined that money. And that is money that you as Texans each paid into the system, and we do need to get it back. It left 1.8 million people without access to health care. I don't think that is acceptable at all, and we need to call and get our money back. As far as everyone else, it's going to take someone starting the discussion. We have not had that discussion in this state about what we're going to do about healthcare. We need to bring in the medical field, we need to bring in the pharmaceutical companies, and we need to sit down and actually discuss with them exactly how we're going to get everyone with coverage. Now, I will say that I had someone at a recent rally say, well, I really don't want to pay for someone else's health insurance. And I let them know that they are already paying for someone else's health insurance. They're using the ER as a doctor. And through our taxes we actually pay for someone who is not paying their medical bills or not able to pay their medical bills or doesn't have insurance. And hospitals are not taking the write-off. If you believe a hospital is taking a write-off, then I have some oceanfront property in Arizona that I can sell you, because hospitals actually take whatever that write-off is and increase the cost of services for those who do have insurance, which causes an increase to your premium. So you are paying for individuals who do not have health care. So, Hardy just said hello, Lewis. So,
Hi.
So Shelley, it's going to take someone getting the conversation started, and we will actually, I will be the one to do that, to bring everyone in the room. It's going to be about a 2 to 3 year process in order to create a healthcare program to where all Texans are covered and have access to healthcare. And I mean all. All righty. Let's see. What? And I apologize, y'all. When they printed this, I'm going to speak with Kevin. I need a little bit bigger print. So I'm getting up that age. I'll be 2 weeks from tomorrow. I turn 50, so we're having cake. So let's see. What about changing our clocks every spring and fall? Why can't we just spring forward and never fall back ever again? That was from Lauren. I've thought the same thing, Lauren. That's not, I'll be honest with you, I don't have a policy on that one. I have not really given it much thought, but it is something that I will speak with our policy director, Aaron, on and see what the pros and cons are so that we can move forward with that. Okay. So thank y'all very much. And there are some other questions on here from previous. So I will actually look at those So, and we will get to those at a later time. But I have, like I said, if you're just tuning in, we have a live audience with us. So we have a live question. So hello, and your name?
My name's Annette.
Annette, thank you for coming, Lynette. Annette, sorry.
Annette, that's okay. I noticed on your statement card that you mentioned that women's health is important to you and that you want to focus energy on increasing women's health programs that promote education, access to medication, and adoption services.
Correct.
Can you give me an outline of some of what your policy or proposed action would be to mitigate the horrible situation we're in now, where so many women's health clinics have been defunded and closed, and women don't have, particularly in rural areas or areas near the border, don't have that access because of the laws that have been made in the state? How could you combat that and get those clinics reopened and back to operating status?
Mm-hmm. And thank you for asking that. Mm-hmm. We defunded Planned Parenthood, and when we did that, we created the Women's Health Services, I believe is what it's called, which lessened the actual number of clinics that were available to women. We have spoken with women in rural parts of the state who are having to drive up to 125 miles just to get to the nearest clinic. That's unacceptable. When Texas defunded Planned Parenthood, it was done under the guise of, we have to because they provide services to a woman that we don't agree with. Even though the Hyde Act doesn't allow you to spend state and federal money for those items that they were so upset about. What we need to do is, and I advocate for this, defund the women's health centers. Do away with them. They're state-run and they're horrendous. They're not offering any services. Refund Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood has the foundation. They have the educational programs. They have the access to a larger community, and they have the locations. Now, they had to close some of them, but if we refund them, then part of us refunding them is, but you need to reopen what you had to close before, because now you're receiving the proper funding. So it's not just going to be, here's a check and, we hope you open. That's going to be a stipulation. You must open. And where are you going to open these? And we need to sit down with Planned Parenthood and say, but what about this area? And what about this area? To make sure that we are getting the full return on our investment into Planned Parenthood. But Planned Parenthood has the foundation. They're an incredible organization, and we need to work with them instead of working against them. So,
I agree.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Annette. So, alrighty. So, and again, if y'all have a question, just let Lewis know, because I'm usually looking at the screen and I'll get right to you. So Steve says, hi, Jeffrey. Clearly, the Texas Democratic Party, in my opinion, is not playing nice with you. How are you combating that? Steve, thank you very much. I appreciate the question. We are combating it by doing exactly what we're doing. We are barnstorming this state. I have 3 days in Dallas between now and March 6th, which is the primary. Thankfully, my husband Sergio is taking care of the house and the businesses, and I appreciate that, and our 11 rescues. So yes, we have 11 rescue dogs. So most of them are small. They're dachshunds. But then we have one that's an American Bulldog, and she is quite large. I consider her a horse. But we're doing exactly that, and we're reaching out to people. And, endorsements are nice. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying endorsements aren't needed. But at the end of the day, it's the people on the ground, and it's the people that we're meeting with, and we're meeting one-on-one with, whether it's groups of 4 or whether it's groups of 400. It doesn't matter. Every Texan has a right to be heard, and that's what we're doing as we barnstorm the state. And another note I need to make is we're actually driving everywhere we go. We are in my car. I will need a new car before this is over. We just looked at our oil change sticker, and we're a little bit over. well, more than a little bit. So we're stopping today to get our oil changed. But everyone else is flying from, this city to that city, and we're actually driving. We're in the car and we are driving. And we stop in small towns to eat, to get gas, and we're meeting people at the gas stations. We're meeting people at the local diners and the local cafes in the town squares, and that's what it takes. It's visibility. And at the end of the day, it's the people who get out and vote that matter. And I'll let the politicians play their political games, and I'm just doing what I believe is right for Texas. So, Steve, I appreciate your question, but the Democratic Party for 24 years hasn't gotten it right, and maybe we need to change a few things. So that's what we're doing. So,
I do.
You have a question?
I do.
Okay.
My name is Scott.
Okay.
And I was struck when you talked about driving all over the state about I have questions about the toll roads and the lack of maintenance in some of the rural areas of the
Yes.
state. We have a lot of toll roads. It used to be a convenience for a special trip. Now it's like it's part of the highway system.
Correct.
And it seems unfair that, depending on your income status, whether or not you could ride on what I would think would be the public roads.
Correct.
And let's hope you had some thoughts.
Yes,
help us with that.
and as we have driven around Texas, we have a lot of toll roads and we have a lot of potholes. And I think Lewis has hit just about half of them. But so no, I'm joking about Lewis. He's a very good driver. What we have to look at is our gasoline tax, which is 20 cents right now, has not been touched since 1992. We're living off an infrastructure budget that was set in 1992. I propose that we raise it 10 cents. And an average family with 2 cars would spend around $220 more per year. Unless they have like one of those hybrids, then it would be less. If you drive a Hummer, you're on your own. It's going to cost a little bit more. But just by increasing the gasoline tax by 10 cents per gallon, we can then turn around and fund infrastructure. I call toll roads the roads for the rich, in all honesty. And they fluctuate in pricing as well now. It used to be if you take this road, it's $1, between this exit and this exit. Now, depending on traffic, you're there in the morning and it was, $2.10. You get there another time and it's $3.80. So what we need to do is increase it by 10 cents, and then we can actually build the roads without them being toll roads. We also need to, that would allow us to fund local towns and the smaller towns, smaller rural areas, so that they can have infrastructure as well, and update their water system, update their the pipes with their water system, update their roads as well. Then we need to look at the current toll roads, because last time I checked, toll roads were supposed to be charging until they were paid for. But then they're like, well, we're getting money, so let's just keep them as a toll road. If any toll road right now was built with the concept that once it was paid for, we would stop the toll, then we're going to hold them to it. Once it's paid for, then it becomes a public road again. So, and thank you for your question. I truly appreciate it. So, with you being able to cope with the men and women of Texas, do you feel like you have a better advantage than others? Well, I wouldn't say I cope with the men and women of Texas. I speak with them, but I think I know the essence of your question. I do believe I have a better advantage because the one thing that individuals want is to know that their government is listening to them, and they're not just speaking at them. And that's what we're missing in government right now. We will continue, once I become governor, once a month, we will do live feeds, just like I do now, except we'll do them from the governor's mansion. And we will continue. I will actually have every 2 weeks, biweekly press conferences, because you need to hear from your governor. You need to hear the direction of the state, what he's proposing, what the legislature is doing, and the media and the press need to be able to have access to the governor. And we've been missing that. We don't have that access. And so thank you for your question. But yes, do I feel I have an advantage? Yes, because I'm actually getting out there and meeting people one-on-one. And that's what Texans deserve. And that's what they've not been getting. So thank you for that question. Kelly, with you being able to, oh, that was from Kelly. Sorry. Okay. Thank you, Kelly. They sent the question through twice to me. So I apologize for that. Pardon me. So here we go. Let me see. Okay, Simon, what are your top 3 things you will do if elected governor? I get asked that a lot. What are the top 3 issues? And I always say, well, if you want me to pick 3, it's education, it's healthcare, and it's women's rights. Those are my top 3. However, someone that owns 5 businesses, 5 very diverse businesses and 3 nonprofits, it's called multitasking. So to me, all the issues are top issues. When you speak about immigration, when you speak about this $20 billion wall that someone wants to build down there, which I can think of 20 billion other things to spend the money on. We have to do certain things, and all of them are important, even the gerrymandering of our state. And understand that I don't just lay the blame on the Republicans when it comes to gerrymandering, because quite frankly, in the 80s and before, when the Democrats were in charge, we were doing the same thing. So what we need to do with gerrymandering is actually do what Pennsylvania is doing and a couple of other states, is they have an outside commission that is nonpartisan, that actually determines what our district should be laid out as, so that they're fair and that we have true representation, not just either party, I guess I'm saying, deciding, well, we can get more votes if, we can get more officials if we gerrymander the heck out of Texas. So yes, all of the issues are big to me, but education, healthcare, and women's rights, those are my top 3. Simone in Corpus Christi, why do you think there are so many contenders for governor in the Democratic Party? I believe because we're all sick of what we've been watching for the last 24 years. Everyone talks about how the state is doing well economically, even though we're $369 billion in debt, second only to California. We are neck and neck right there with New York, the state of New York. And I'm talking about state and local debt, and you can't just, pardon me, the state has a habit of passing laws and then making the local entities pay for it, or making the local ISDs pay for what they determine needs to be done. In states such as California and New York, they actually, when the state legislature passes something and they're going to go into debt, the state goes into debt. They don't pass it on to the local entities. So that's why our state debt looks so good, but our local debt is blown up. And it's because we pass laws on the state level, and then we basically tell the local entities they have to pay for it. That will change. And under my leadership, we will actually, when you propose something, you got to figure out how you're going to pay for it. You just can't create a law and go, well, okay, if we go into debt, we go into debt. Last time I checked, each one of us had to balance our checkbook at the end of the month. So should the state. So thank you very much for that question. But I also believe there are a lot of contenders too, because of what's coming out of DC. They're not happy with what's coming out of DC. Everything is moving at a snail's pace out of DC. They're taking away healthcare. They had a wonderful tax break. That was sarcasm, by the way. Teachers can't write off the supplies anymore that they spend out of their personal pocket to help educate our children. But if you own a jet, you're good to go. You can write off the jet. So let's see, there are so many people running for governor is similar to any primary. Many people have good ideas. There are a lot of people, and there are people are speaking about similar things. I just want to make note that we've actually been running for governor since last July. We celebrated today. We're at 190 days on the campaign trail, and we have 52 more to go until the primary. And many of my opponents in the Democratic primary, they have good ideas. I just believe that mine are better. I believe mine are more sound fiscally. And also, we were the first one out the gate with most of them. And many people are just now reiterating what we've been saying. And so, and the fact that we actually have policy says a lot about our campaign, whereas many of them barely have a website. So, Victoria says, do you think that the Democratic Party will ever back you? Yes, on March 7th, the day after the primary, I believe the Democratic Party will back me because I will be the nominee. And we have great faith in that. And so, yes, Victoria, the Democratic Party will come, they will back us. And it'll just be March 7th, the day after the primary, when they're kind of forced to look at us and go, oh, you actually won. Okay. So thank you, Victoria, for that. We have a lot of people tuning in. I'm thrilled to see that, and thank you all for tuning in today. And remember, we have a special edition on Sunday where we are speaking about nothing but education, education, education. 2 o'clock on Sunday. That's 2 o'clock Central Time, because I know in El Paso, you're an hour behind. So it's 1 o'clock your time. Lewis and Gilmer. Abbott has like tons of money. How do you go against that? Yes, he has $43 million, and he just set the record for any single candidate as far as in Texas with how much money they have. It does not take $43 million to run for governor of Texas. Maybe when you have a private jet and you're flying around, it costs a little bit more, but at least maybe he can write off that jet now since they passed a new tax bill. Understand that $43 million in our bank account would be nice, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, we don't need $43 million. We're doing it. We don't take super PAC money. We don't take special interest money. We don't take large corporation money. We are actually funded by the men and women of Texas. And that's how a campaign should be run. Now, I have full disclosure. I have received $265 from individuals outside the state of Texas. They were friends of mine, Arizona, California. Every other dime has come from individuals who live in Texas. They have a vested interest. And I have always believed that individuals who are in a state or if it's a city election, the people that live within that area, they should be the ones who fund the campaigns, not outside money, not big PAC, super PAC money. So that's where we are. That's how we will run our campaign. And I am very proud of our campaign for being able to do that. So thank you, Lewis and Gilmer. Marissa, scientists say we're running out of water in Texas. Yes, we are. And that it would take hundreds of years to replenish the, pardon me, what can we do for new water sources? That is actually something I'm going to be real upfront with y'all. I am not a scientist. I do not know how to actually replenish our water system. However, I do know how to call people who do know how to do that and get them in the room so that we can discuss how we move forward successfully. Our water sources are limited. That's why I believe we need to stop this fracking that we're doing. The fracking that we're doing is wasting water, as well as it's causing earthquakes, which is putting huge cracks in my foundation at my nightclub. So every time the building shakes, we get a new crack in the floor, and suddenly one of the doors doesn't open or one of the doors can't close. So again, that's Aaron, everybody. He's our policy. Way Baron.
No.
But we need to bring in those individuals, engineers and scientists who can actually help us to understand. Oh, thank you very, very much. So we can actually understand what we need to do in order to replenish our water supply so that we don't just have a water supply for today, but we're also doing work on the front end so that we have a water supply in the future as well. So thank you very much, Marissa, for that. I'm sorry, I do apologize. I don't have a more specific answer, but until we sit down with individuals and figure out how we're actually going to do it, and when I say individuals, I mean the scientists and engineers, then it isn't going to work. Jamie in Big Springs, can we be the leader in alternative energy? Yes, we can, Jamie. Right now, we actually do have a lot of alternative energy options out there that we're already doing in Texas. We have seen the big, and it's actually quite beautiful, the wind turbines. We have seen those, and it's just miles and miles and miles of wind turbines, and it's actually very pretty. And it's, but we also need to look at more solar as well, especially in Texas. We seem to get a lot of sun. That would make sense. But you know, for those, we have a leader right now who doesn't even believe climate change is real. And though I support some, as long as it is good for the environment, as far as regulating their emissions, oil and gas, we can actually do more on the alternative energy side so that we have less reliance on oil and gas. And also understand that when we increase our alternative energy production, that's jobs. And that it creates jobs, and it creates jobs in rural areas, especially. And that is something that we need to be the leader in, and so that other states are actually looking at us as the example and not the exception. So, Jamie, thank you for that. We are one of the leaders in alternative energy right now, but for the size of Texas, we should be the leader, and we should be the one that everyone is looking at.
Jeffrey?
Yes, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I have another question.
Okay, wonderful.
I was noticing your education policy, and you were talking about how we must dismantle the Robin Hood program, and I agree with you that hasn't worked. But I also know that it was established to try to address the disparity in so many school districts, where you had some school districts that had, you know, college level equipment and supplies, and others that were just abysmal. So how would you do you have a plan
Yes.
for addressing that inadequacy?
Yes. We do away with the Robin Hood program so that property rich areas, they can actually start lowering their property tax because they won't need as much, because they're not having to send so much money to the state. But then when we look at the property the tax in lower income areas or lower property areas, that's where the state is supposed to make sure that they bring them up. What the state was doing was trying to Robin Hood, rob from the rich and give to the poor. Well, the state is not supposed to do this. The state is supposed to fund that. The way we do it is, right now, all property tax lies on the backs of individuals and small business. Large corporations are getting sweetheart deals left and right. They're not paying their fair share of property tax to the tune of about $5 to $6 billion per year. So we closed that loophole, and there's the loopholes were established in 98, and no one will close them, because then large corporations would have to pay more in taxes. They need to understand they have a vested interest in making sure our children are educated, because we're all going to retire one day. I'm crossing my fingers. I hope I get to retire. But when we retire, who's going to take our place? It's our children and our grandchildren. When they expand their business, who's going to fill those jobs? Our children and their children. So they have a vested interest in ensuring that our children are educated in order to step into these roles, into these employment roles. So we need to close those loopholes. That money will then go towards education, so that those property tax that is low, the state can then bring them up to where everybody else is. Because right now we're 43rd in the nation. We were at 36 4 years ago, and we've dropped to 43rd. Abbott said in his debate with Wendy last time that he was going to be number one in education. And I guess he meant number one on the bad list because we're going the wrong direction. So what I'm saying is that we can increase our expenditure on what we spend per student. And it's not just looking at the K through 12. We also need to look at trade schools, our community colleges, and or for associate degrees. And then we need to look at our controlling our tuition at state colleges. Now, if you want to go to a private college, that's great, but you're on your own. If you want to go to a private school, K through 12, you're on your own. And in addition to this, and to answer your question, when we look at voucher program is, in my opinion, nothing but giving a coupon to someone that can already afford to send their kid to private school. If you want to send your kid to private school, I'm all for it. But public money should be spent on public school. And most people need to understand that when the average cost of private school is $15,000 a year. Well, this coupon, I call it a coupon, this voucher, is only going to be worth about, let's say, between $9,000 and $10,000. So a family still has to come up with $5,000 to $6,000 to get their kid into private school. You can't do that because a low income or even a middle class individual is not going to have an extra $5,000 to $6,000 laying around to put with this voucher to send their kid to private school. And if they have 3 kids, they need 3 times that amount of money. And so it's a way to give those who can already afford it. Mm-hmm. So I'm not for the voucher program, not just because of that, but because I believe that public money should be spent on public schools. And the state needs to step it up, and we need to scrub our budget. And we also need to stop passing laws that we immediately end up in court over. We're spending way too much there. And we need to not have special sessions, which cost us around $900,000, so that we can talk about a bathroom bill and cutting down some trees. That was a huge waste of money. And, you know, we actually had a friend of mine who said, well, at least the bathroom bill won't come back up. And I went, yeah, you put Abbott and Patrick back in, and the bathroom bill will come back up. And unfortunately, we won't have Joe Strauss to actually stand up and say, no, this is not only discriminatory, but it's bad for the economy. It will come back up. And they were like, oh, we thought once it was dead. I was like, no. I hate to tell you this, but nothing dies in politics. So, pardon me. So, yes, the state can fund education. We just need to actually fund it. What I believe the current government is trying to do is privatize it, like they did the prison system, which, on a side note, I would end. Our prison system should not be privatized. Because they are in it for the profit, and they need prisoners in order to make a profit. Right. And we should not, as a state, be in the habit of let's find prisoners to send. We should be in the business of making sure people have access to mental health care, that people have access to programs which would, such as AA and so on, that would help them with addiction. Opioid crisis right now is huge. And we need to actually do something about these things rather than just putting them in prison. And those who do end up in prison, we need to make sure that we are fully rehabilitating them and giving them a pathway to being productive citizens once they do get out. Because when we don't, when they get out of prison, they're going right back to what they were doing beforehand. And thus the turnstile is they're headed right back to prison. So we need to offer them an opportunity for training so that when they get out, they're productive citizens. So thank you. Patrick from Richardson, why should I vote for you and not the other candidates? Well, thank you, Patrick. That's a good question. And, you know, it would be easier for me to answer that question if the other candidates would actually come out with some policies. Then I could compare us and say, hey, you know, I believe this, but they believe this, and this is why theirs is going to work. But right now, no one really has any policies. They're just promising the sun, the moon, you know, and the stars. You know, they're saying, well, we'll have a better education system. Well, how? They're saying, you know, we're going to take care of the healthcare. Well, how? You know, so honestly, why should you vote for me? I'm the one that actually has the infrastructure in our campaign to go all the way to next November and beat at it. I'm the only one out there that has a true list of policies and exactly what we're going to do. I'm the one that isn't steeped in the political world so that I owe favors to this person and that person and this person and that person. And, you know, I just believe that I'm the one that is going to shoot straight with you. Someone that is not going to just tell you what you want to hear. These are my beliefs. We're the ones that have been out there longer than anyone else. Again, we've been out there since last July. And, you know, I have a passion for this. And, you know, I'm not just doing it because I want to run for our even higher office one day. Like I've said before, my husband's already said if I ever see your name on the national ticket, they'll never find me. So this is as high as I'm going. And I want to give back to Texas because when I moved here after the hurricane in New Orleans, Katrina, Texas was good to me, you know, and someone that literally came over here with 2 dogs. I only had 2 dogs at the time, 2 dogs and $2,000 in his pocket. And Texas obviously was good to me when I now own 5 businesses and 3 nonprofits. And so it's time to give back. You know, that's the one thing I learned when I was in the orphanage. When I grew up in an orphanage, and Miss Lonnie, who was our cook, I learned 2 things at the orphanage. Miss Lonnie, our cook, she actually said, Jeffrey, whenever you're making something, if you want it to taste good, add bacon grease. And I do live by that. Now, I did say that to a bunch of nurses the other night. They weren't too thrilled when I said that. You know, but I have a sneaky suspicion some of those nurses use bacon grease. But the other thing I learned most importantly was from Miss Peggy. She was our house mother. And she always said, Jeffrey, in everything that you do, it's not what you get out of life. It's what you give back. And now is the time for me to give back. And Texas has been good to me. And I believe that this is the right thing to do. So those are the reasons I believe that you should vote for me. So thank you, Patrick from Richardson. I appreciate your question. Bill, what about the death penalty? Do you support it? Actually, no, I don't support the death penalty for a myriad of reasons. But the main one is there have been people that have been on death row who were executed. And then we found out later that they were actually innocent. On the economic side, when someone is on death row, it actually costs more than if we just kept them turned into a life sentence. It actually costs more when someone is on death row. So economically, we need to look at it as a no. But to me, on a humanistic side, I don't believe in the death penalty. It is because if you got it wrong, there's no way to get it back. And I just don't believe in it. So thank you, Bill. I do not support the death penalty. Australia. Well, let me go back to that, Bill, because someone did ask me one time, well, what if it was your husband, Sergio? Would you feel the same way? And even though my first thought might be, you know, take him out, I know that that would just be a first thought. At the end of the day, I do believe that even though they should serve life in prison, that I'm a God-loving man, and I believe forgiveness is paramount. And so, no, I would still not support the death penalty, even if it were my husband. So thank you, Bill. Australia, the Hispanic voters are a growing group in Texas. Do you believe you can motivate Latino Texans to vote? And the answer is yes. We have been down, especially in the Valley, and we have been there several times, and we are getting a huge response from the Hispanic voters down there in the Valley, but as well as in other areas of Texas. And what I believe people are understanding is that I understand that the Hispanic voters, they have their set of issues that are important to them. The Black voters have issues that are important to them. The LGBTQ community has some issues that are important to them. Women have issues that are important to them. But I think the time of putting everybody in a box is done. We're all Texans. And when you assist or you promote something that is good for, let's say, the women's community, it actually is helping the entire community. When you assist someone in the Hispanic community or the Black community or the LGBT community, it's actually affecting everyone in a positive manner. So let's spend a little less time putting everybody in a box and spend more time understanding that we're all Texans and we all basically want the same thing in life, and that is to be successful and provide for our families. So thank you, Australia. But yes, we are actually motivating, to answer your question specifically, we are motivating Latino voters across Texas. So thank you. Lacey, what are your thoughts on hospital patient dumping and what steps would you take to stop this in Texas? Excuse me, let me get a drink of water.
Any questions?
All righty, hospital patient dumping. We need to pass laws and ensure that the laws that are already on the books are actually followed. The ability for a hospital to actually do that is something that, of course, I do not support and will not support. We need to ensure that hospitals are releasing patients when they are able, that the patient is able to be released, and that the doctor has signed off on it, that those in the know would know that they're able to be released from the hospital. To release someone simply because they don't have health insurance or they don't have the proper health insurance needs to stop. Someone's health is paramount. Healthcare is a right; it is not a privilege, and we need to stop any practice of that is happening, and we need to ensure that laws that are, again, currently on the books are upheld, and we need to strengthen the laws that are there so that patient dumping is not something that is adhered to. Alrighty. Now, let's see. Do you have to be, Terry asked, do you have to be a registered Democrat to vote in the primary, or just a registered voter? You must be a registered voter. Let's say you're a Republican, but you want to vote on the Democratic side. You can actually, when you walk in, you tell them which ballot you want, but you must be registered. Remember, you must be registered by February 5th in order to vote in the March 6th primary. So, but yes, you must be registered. And if you're registered to, as a Republican, you can actually vote on the Democratic side. Yes, you can. Or if you're a Democrat, you can vote on the Republican side. Now, I don't suggest that. Now, there is some social media buzz about actually Democrats voting on the Republican side to oust incumbents. Do not do that. Do not get caught up in that. It was it is Democratic support the Democrats, and not just the ones at the top of the ticket. support everyone, down ticket, go all the way to the end, and yes, in some counties, there may be, 10 pages that you have to go through all 10, go all the way down to the very last person on the ballot and vote. Understand that for the primary, you have to go office by office. In the general election, you can do straight ticket. This is the last year in this November general election that you'll be able to do straight ticket. They took that away starting in 2020. So, but don't switch parties from if you're a Democrat and think that, well, let's go vote some Republican incumbents out. The Democrats need your vote. Your voice needs to be heard for those whom you want to support. So please don't do that. Becca in Levelland. Met you in an elevator in Levelland. I remember that. It was cool to see you here. Yes, we enjoyed being there. My daughter is very involved in Little League Baseball. Are you in support of making sure arts and music and after-school programs are still a part of the school programs? Yes, I am in support of that, and that's when I speak about making sure we properly fund education. The arts need to come back to our schools. That is a very important part of our educational process. So, yes, we need to bring that back. In my world, that is properly funding the school is when you're also able to bring arts back. So, yes, and Becca, it was good to see you in Levelland, and I look forward to seeing you again, because I believe we passed through sometime in February. Again, I wake up in the morning and Lewis tells me where we're headed.
You're back over there next week.
Oh, it's next week. So we're there next week. So that's why I have Lewis in charge of the calendar. So Debbie, what is your stance on medical marijuana and immigration? Debbie, thank you. Actually, that was a question from last week. And we've covered this before. Medical marijuana, I believe that doctors should be able to work with their patient and decide on the best treatment between the doctor and the patient. And if medical marijuana is the choice between the two, then that should be the choice without government intervention. I know that it does help individuals with PTSD, and veterans should have that choice. And I will advocate for that. I'm currently waiting on what is going on with Jeff Sessions, our U.S. Attorney General, because he has come out and said that he is going to start pressing charges, and doctors are now worried that they're going to lose their license and yada, yada, yada. But it's a new day. Every day is a new day when it comes to DC right now. So we'll see what they're doing, but I will advocate for it and push that through with as much force as I can. And I will fight Washington on it, because I believe it is a state issue. It should be decided by the states, not the federal government. Your stance on, I'm sorry, what was the second part? Oh, immigration. And just to throw in that whole medical marijuana thing, I know the next question is usually, how do you feel about recreational marijuana? I do believe that we need to legalize it. Am I a personal user? No. But Colorado actually has it. And the largest purchaser of recreational marijuana in Colorado, other than those who live in Colorado, are Texans. And so we need to regulate it just like we regulate alcohol. And I own a nightclub, and believe me, alcohol is regulated. But we need to regulate the sale of it. We need to have laws in place for it. You can't drive while under the influence, just like alcohol. And then we need to tax it. And that I propose that any tax that comes from that actually goes to education. So to answer your question on immigration, again, I covered that a little bit earlier. When it comes to immigration, I do believe we need a secure border. However, I don't believe a secure border involves a $20 billion wall. That wall, $20 billion wall, I've got a $200 ladder at Home Depot I can buy that would get me right over the wall. So just like the security that we have there now, they're either going over it they're going under it, or they're going to the Gulf and going around it. But also understand that many individuals, 65% of those who are here undocumented, actually came here legally. They just overstayed their visa. So a wall isn't going to help when they're already flying over it legally. So when it comes to immigration, though, and the undocumented individuals, we have 2.2 million undocumented individuals in Texas right now. That's an estimate. The governor cannot wave a wand and make them citizens. It's a federal issue. But maybe what I believe our governor should be doing is going to Washington, and not for photo ops in the Oval Office and fundraising dinners so he can have $43 million to run for governor again. Maybe he should be banging on some doors up there and banging on some heads while he's at it, and tell them to get immigration reform completed. The last time any immigration reform was done, any significant, was back in the 80s with Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan actually offered amnesty. And it was okay then, but it's not okay now. But, we can't run around. There are estimated 11 million undocumented individuals in the United States right now. We cannot drive around with a bus and pick all these people up and send them back to the country from which they came. It's too expensive. We can't do it. So because the government has kicked this can down the road for decades, the only option is to allow them a path to citizenship. And so that's what I advocate for, and that's what I'll be in DC doing. And when I say when I go to DC, it's not just to speak with our two senators and our congressmen. It's to speak to anyone that will listen. I have no issue banging on doors. Obviously, I'm running for office. And you have to, and that's what we have to do, and that's what I will do. And until we get something done, and I'm going to make a lot of noise, and they're probably not going to like me too much up there. But this isn't a popularity contest. So, but we do need to have immigration reform, and that's what I'll advocate for. And when I say advocate for it, I'm talking about a path to citizenship. So thank you, Debbie. I appreciate your question. Tim, I can't remember if I got to speak to you guys about complete streets and vision, zero transportation policies. Are you familiar with those policies? If so, how do you feel about them? Actually, I do have them. Hold on one second. You know what? I think that is still in my bag. If you don't mind, Tim, I'm going to cover that next week, and I do apologize because I know you asked that last week, but we did research on that, and I unfortunately left it out in the car, if I'm not mistaken. But if you don't mind, I will look at it and answer you next week. Besides, I think I only have 1 minute left. So Tim, that'll be my first question next week. If the staff will get it on as the first question. So, alrighty. Well, I need to wrap up. Again, I want to say thank you to Munger and Campbell for allowing us to meet here today in Wimberley, Texas. And we will actually be tomorrow.
Bandera.
Okay.
County.
I just threw the biggest blank on where it was going to be tomorrow. Bandera County. So we're looking forward to that. Remember, tonight, we will be at the Grand Social Club and Billiard Room on Airport for a happy hour from 6 to 9. If you're able to, in Austin, if you're able to make it out, we'd love to see you. And remember, on Sunday at 2 p.m., special edition of Ask Jeffrey Live, where we discuss education, and it'll be nothing but education. So I look forward to that. And as well, if you go to our website, jeffreyfortexas.com, you will see that we are where we're going to be in upcoming weeks. We have 52 days left until the primary. Not that I'm counting, but we have 52 days, and 3 of those are at home, so I can do laundry. And the other days we're out on the road. Texas is a large state. So thank y'all for joining in today. I truly appreciate it. And we will see all of you on Sunday at 2 p.m. And if not, if you're not able to make it on Sunday, we'll see you next week on Friday from 12 to 1 Central Standard Time. Y'all take care and have a great weekend. And happy Martin Luther King Day. Bye, y'all.